It's been 4 years since California had normal rainfall, but in part of San Bernardino County, man-made chemicals could turn the drought into a long-term disaster for 500,000 residents.
The perchlorate contamination cleanup issue, which is a priority to me, was not being addressed.
Perchlorate is a chemical often found in explosives that can damage the thyroid. San Bernardino County Supervisor Josie Gonzalez says it is damaging the scarce groundwater in Rialto, Colton, and the surrounding areas.
The water did become contaminated.
Government agencies are pulling together now to contain the threat, but it's taken them almost 20 years to do so. And the delay, according to critics, reflects almost Katrina-like incompetence.
The county and the state of California are guilty of reckless indifference in this instance.
Butch Ariza, long concerned about the contamination, heads a public water district near Rialto.
This is one of the original bunkers that were built during World War II.
He says the perchlorate seep probably started here, in World War II munitions bunkers, later part of a commercial explosive dump. State regulators designated it the Broco facility.
It was common knowledge about this facility throughout the county.
Environmental attorney Barry Groveman says local officials have long known that Broco posed a contamination danger. And yet, in the late 80s, state regulatory agencies, by their own account, lost track of the dump.
It was basically lost in the files for a dozen years.
John Scandura is a manager with the State Department of Toxic Substances Control, or DTSC.
Essentially, it was lost in the records until we rediscovered it in 2001.
The confusion was contagious. A county report in 1989 didn't mention the facility. So when the county later bought the surrounding area and made it part of a public landfill, Supervisor Gonzalez says contamination didn't register as a big threat.
There were no significant contamination issues.
But Butch Ariza says there were red flags, that he warned the county in 1997 perchlorate was seeping into the groundwater. And Kurt Berchtold of the State Water Board agrees that traces were found in an old munitions bunker at the time.
There was one sample that showed elevated levels of perchlorate.
Even so, 2 years later, the county destroyed the bunkers, buried the forgotten Broco dump, and allowed a private company to build gravel washing ponds over it, with no lining to catch contaminated water. The result, says Attorney Groveman, was
to push these contaminants into the groundwater.
County officials insist there was still no clear evidence of danger, and state regulators suggest the proof may have been misplaced with the still forgotten Broco site.
It was the blind spot in the paperwork.
The notion that the state DTSC would license this facility and then let it escape from their radar is malfeasant.
I think it's about monetary.
Ariza says the county soft-pedaled the perchlorate threat simply to keep the landfill open and profitable.
They cut corners with
They cut corners on everything they did.
Shocked, Ariza and Groveman created a task force in 2002 to highlight the perchlorate problem. And state regulators finally rediscovered the forgotten Broco dump and ordered the county to clean it up. But astonishingly, only last March, 7 years later, did the county submit an action plan to be completed by the year 2013.
These are technically very complicated matters, especially when most of the records on an old facility have been lost.
As for the perchlorate already in the groundwater, state regulator Berchtold says the county is taking every precaution to make the drinking water safe.
The county system will prevent the problem from spreading. There is, in fact, no hazard to public health.
But the county's own consultant, Gary Lass, while declining to be interviewed, admits in recent studies that the county has only one treatment well for perchlorate operating in the Rialto-Colton area. One out of a proposed 3 wells, and he says one would not provide adequate containment. Supervisor Gonzalez is more upbeat about the decontamination process.
How satisfactory is that effort right now?
It's very satisfactory.
But in speaking with our producer, she often seemed confused about the status of the wells and had to check with aides off camera.
I did not know that second one was not up and running.
How many are up and running?
One. Would I like more? Yes.
Meantime, 50,000 ratepayers in the immediate Rialto Colton area are having to fork over 18% more on their water bills in order to pay for the seemingly never-ending cleanup process.
The festering sores still there, pouring the perchlorate into the ground.